Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to the chat show where we talk about empathy, employment, and innovation every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Today's guest, Rondu Vincent, is a director of supplier diversity and procurement. And I have just learned that he has added the responsibility in the area of sustainability. And if you are connected with supplier diversity or procurement, he needs no introduction, right? And we all know he's passionate about supplier diversity, procurement, and I don't want to forget about the cigar and the single malt. So with that and outdoor, but unfortunately he was not able to join us from his backyard. So sorry about that, Randu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nish. I certainly appreciate it. And it's good to be with you. Good to be with everyone here and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Randu, we always talk about, start with our why. And I know you personally for I don't know how many years, and you are truly a passionate individual with some amazing background and experience. Uh, Tell us a little bit about how your past experience has shaped your current journey of empathy and compassion in the supplier diversity space.
Well, thanks for that, Nish. And again, thanks for having me and thanks for sharing the good news about Rangam and your new partnerships. It's certainly needed. We need champions like yourself and to fight this fight with us. So as for me, Nish, where I grew up, I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly, quite frankly. And, struggling to make it out of a tough environment, it's a challenge without the right support and or the right resources for that matter. I saw firsthand how having a few dollars in your pocket can keep you from making bad decisions. And that's real talk. So as I was afforded the opportunities in a path to be successful, and I had a lot of mentors, I had a lot of great leaders and bosses that helped me guide my career. I took them with the intent to eventually, when I was in a position to support others. And so into the world of supplier diversity, it was an opportunity for me to take the procurement skills and leadership abilities that I had, which I started my career in for the most part, and get to marry it with the supply diversity piece. And that was powerful because, that is where you can actually lift and touch communities. And that was important. And it's led me here. I'm speaking with Mr. Empathy himself, Nish. So, but that's where it comes from. I mean, you got to really understand where you came from to understand where you're going. And that's what really drives me and has me in this position that I'm in today, and networking and building relationships with individuals like yourself, companies like Rangam, because I know you guys are on the front lines and doing the right thing and creating jobs and economic parity in the community. So,
no, thank you. So, along with supplier diversity, Randu, I have seen you in person, in action as an individual. Tell us a little bit. I have seen you, working with some underprivileged schools and homeless centers. It was just amazing experience personally for me to be part of some of those activities. Tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, share that, because that is really empathetic approach, and we had some great conversations in some of those events. So please share some of your thoughts and your experience and your work.
Yeah, definitely, and I appreciate that because what and I want to, before I even go into the answer, I want to give a major shout out to my colleague and my brother Paul Ashley, who also works at Bristol Myers Squibb, for his thoughts around this here. When we go to conferences around the country, Nish, and you've been to plenty, we've been to plenty together.
Yeah.
We wanted to leave the community where those conferences are better than when we arrived. And Paul Ashley said, why aren't we doing community outreach events? Yeah. And that triggered something. It was that V8 moment, right? It's like, whoa, why aren't we, right? So what we started was our Power to Impact program, which has become a core staple to the Supply Diversity program. And we initiated in 2016. We've successfully run about 17 or 18 events, and we've tackled everything from homelessness, issues to unemployment or underemployment to literacy in the middle, centralized school districts, to healthcare disparities, whether it's in the LGBT community or the minority community. So we've run a lot of these events that have been really recognized by other organizations, and we try to partner with other organizations to expand our reach. But that is something that is a core part of us, and we know that we're in these positions of privilege, if you will, that we need to leverage those resources and the engines and the networks and the community that we have behind us to go into these underserved and underrepresented communities and populations to lift them. So that's how it started. We're going to continue to do them. We actually been continuing to do them even in this COVID remote environment, which has been outstanding to see us have how we have to pivot and use technology to really touch communities and continue that mission. Because now more than ever, Nish, and you know this, it's not the time to let off the gas. We need to continue to keep moving forward because there's still people that need our help.
This is so beautiful. So, Randu, you know, the theme of this program is to talk about innovation, and this is truly innovative approach. Of as part of your supplier diversity program, and I have been, we have Rangam has been part of it, and we have, thoroughly learn and experience just amazing journey of really taking the empathetic approach and making a social impact in the society we all live in. And another thing which which we really admire, that how the whole BMS team has taken this to the totally next level, your supplier diversity program. So I would like to change gears a little bit from personal to a little bit on the equity side. As you know, with the current conditions with COVID-19 and the equity in terms of race. Share your thoughts. What's happening in the world and what is really needed, and how you are looking at this as an opportunity to contribute.
I'll answer that question, but I want to just make sure I take this pause to thank you and the Rangam team, because when we pick up the phone and say, hey, we're having a community outreach event or we're doing something for the community, you respond and show up and even leverage some of your resources to make that event even more spectacular and impactful for the community. So thank you guys, and that's what true partnership is about, and that's the beauty of the supplier diversity ecosystem, if you will, and building these relationships when you're on the same wavelength of empathy, compassion, and community give back. So I want to just thank you for that, and the Rangam team and Hetzel and everyone that supports your organization for being there for these communities that we represent.
Now, on that note, I would definitely say thank you to Sundri and your entire team. They have been a great champion and collaborators and partners for Rangam. So we thank you for the partnership.
Trust me, I wouldn't be here without that team. So Sundari Francis, Farron, Yothi, the whole engine that we have behind us. Keisha Walker, who's also helps coordinate these events when we get out to the community. I may be sitting here with you, Nish, but they're the real heroes and champions here. So certainly thank you and shout out to them.
Yeah.
And getting back to your question, I think there's you can have that wow moment of that. We're in 2020, and it has been a struggle. It's been a challenging year, quite frankly, for us all. And there's a few things that I'll share. Now, while 2020 has not really brought anything newer to life, it has illuminated the struggles that we've been facing for a number of years. And that's where we have to come together even stronger to combat them, right? So when COVID-19 hits, it hits minorities very hard. Mm-hmm. The racial tensions, have probably been at the highest in my adult life, quite frankly. Our economy was hit hard, and it's pushed us to a call to action more than ever before. And I've had more conversations, whether internally or externally, about these issues. And it's a beautiful thing that we're having these courageous conversations, but conversations devoid of action is not going to cut it. So I want to share a couple of things that Bristol Myers Squibb is pledged publicly and committed publicly to address some of the issues that we're talking about. So about around in August, we've issued publicly that we're going to address 5 key issues around the diversity and inclusion space. The first one is addressing health disparities, and we know that minorities, whether it's access to healthcare and things of that nature, there's a challenge. So we're pledging to address that in a number of different ways. Clinical trial diversity, which are essential to developing life-saving medicines for everyone, and we're investing heavily into making sure that we have more diversity in clinical trial sites, and making it easier for diverse individuals to come into those trials. We've increased our employee giving program with a 2-to-1 match. And while that's important, our colleagues are now able to support organizations at a higher level that fight disparities and discrimination. Workforce representation, right? That's another one that we've addressed. We've been doing a great job, but we know we can do more. And this includes tackling, gender parity and making sure that Black and Hispanic representation is high at the executive level. And the one that's near and dear to my heart, and probably yours as well, Nish, is that we've committed to spend $1 billion with diverse suppliers by 2025. And that is going to translate to jobs. And I always say, out of all 5 of those commitments, once we get there, yes, we'll give a round of applause and we'll be excited and ecstatic once we hit those milestones. However, it's the journey that we'll take to get there, the lives that will be impacted, the communities that will lift, and that is what is more important for me throughout these journeys. So I appreciate the supply diversity community, and that just shows that we have more to do, and we're looking to contribute and do our part.
This is the perfect example, and this is why Disability In has recognized you as a supplier diversity advocate. Okay, so I would like to congratulate from the entire Rangam team. And this is who really you are. So thank you for doing this amazing work for suppliers like Rangam and other hundreds and maybe thousands. So thank you for your contribution and being a great champion. We talk about the employment. You touched a little bit about the employment. And as you know, Rangam's mission is to promote employment for everyone. We start with the local to the regional to that ultimately national and global level. How do we promote? And I know your mission is to how do you help suppliers like Rangam and others grow. How do you see the impact on the employment as you and your work in the area of supplier diversity space?
I'll go back to a statement I made earlier about having a few dollars in your pocket can keep you from making bad decisions. Number one, but number two, we all deserve the opportunity to provide for ourselves and our family, and job creation is paramount to tackling a lot of issues. Now, it won't solve all the issues in underserved or underrepresented communities, right? So we have to have a holistic approach to doing so. But a job is a fundamental way to really raise communities, and that is so important. So when you think about what diverse suppliers do, diverse suppliers hire from diverse communities, which is critical, particularly when you're lifting local and smaller communities, underrepresented and underserved communities, and different constituent groups. And I pointed back to the work that you guys do at Rangam, and the mission that you have to not only find employment for everyone, but you have a laser focus on trying to find opportunities of employment for individuals with disability. That is key, and those reasons right there are why supporting diverse suppliers has a multiplier effect, right? And I think not only the goods and services that you're providing are top notch, you need to be agile, nimble, and all of that from a competitiveness standpoint, but you're also doing the work of employing communities, lifting communities. So it's certainly important. And that's one of the things that we stress and focus on internally at BMS. It's not necessarily that, the dollars that we're trying to spend, it's what the suppliers are doing with those dollars that are important. And I also say this, and we touched on it a few seconds ago, around when you are afforded the opportunity of privilege by way of getting a contract for another corporation, et cetera, Nish. I know what you guys do, and I know what other diverse suppliers do. You go and give back, and that is critical because we want to hold all of us to the higher standards of making sure that we're not just saying we're going to, collect a check and move on, but we're also going to leverage our point of privilege and our impact and the engine that we have behind us to help others. So that's why it's key to make sure that we are providing opportunities to diverse suppliers and have that flow down into the communities.
That is so important, and I know, Randu, I know you have a very unique and different way of, number one, um, screening suppliers and really identifying and then collaborating with them. Tell me a little bit about your secret sauce for the success, that why everybody tells us, oh, if Randu is doing it, oh, we would love to do that. Tell me how you are really making it happen.
It's intentionality. Quite frankly, it's that we're coming at it from not only a business perspective, but we're coming at it with a thoughtfulness that with the North Star on the results. So when we are looking for suppliers, obviously we're in a very highly regulated and competitive industry,
Yeah.
and we want the best of the best suppliers. And when we look at diversity and inclusion as an ecosystem, we look at our workforce representation and the diversity of thought that our colleagues bring to the table, and we know that that drives better outcomes. We look for that same thing throughout our supply chain, right? Owned by individuals with different backgrounds, perspectives, from different professional degrees and things of that nature. That's what drives us. I'll also say this, Nish. It is one of those things where we have to shift the mindset of supply diversity being a social program.
Mm-hmm.
It's a strategic part of a supply chain. That differentiator is what we believe in. So when we're screening, yes, we're hard. It may take a couple of years to get into Bristol Myers Squibb, and you guys may know very well.
Yeah.
But once you get in, you're able to shine and deliver. You've been able to build relationships. I mean, we haven't seen each other since last year, but here we are on this platform sharing and building. So I want to make sure that what comes across here is that it's not a social program. It's a program that will enable your supply chain and your organization to be competitive, but also leveraging the diversity of thought that these diverse suppliers like yourselves, again, bring to the table. And that's what I want to make sure that comes across clear.
No, that's absolutely, and we have experienced that, we have seen it, and we appreciate that because it is two-way street, right? It's a true collaboration and partnership, and I think the one of the event we attended about. I'm forgetting the tagline, but I'll move on to my next question.
And before we do that, Nish,
Yeah,
I want to add one thing that is so pertinent to the moment that we're in right now. And it is the fact that in 2020, another thing that I'm respecting about diverse suppliers is how suppliers are showing resiliency and the way that suppliers are pivoting in this moment to keep their businesses running, keeping people employed, and still supporting each other and the community. Because that's important because we've seen a lot of things happen this year, but we know that we're not giving up. We're still keeping the fight going, and diverse suppliers have really pivoted in many, many ways this year, and we're here for that and to support them.
yeah. And I remember the tagline: "Better together."
Better
Better
together.
together. That's what I was trying to remember. Tell us a little bit about what is that at BMS. What does that
That
mean?
it's a respect thing from for our suppliers, right, and our partners, whether it's a supplier or whether it's one of the nonprofit organizations that support us in the community, whether it's Disability In or WeBank and MSDC, et cetera. It's really showing them that when we working together, when our priorities align, when our passions for delivering medicines to patients align, we're just better together. We produce better results. And that's really what that message was signaling to our suppliers. And we wanted to make sure that they understood we appreciate them. And again, in this COVID-19 environment where we're not able to do, face to face and the normal, lunches and things that we would normally do to keep us connected, it's important to send that message out to the market and send that message out to our partners. So it really surrounded around that. And as you saw at the event, we had a lot of our suppliers, diverse suppliers participating to make sure that it was loud and clear, front and center, that we are stronger and better together.
That is so powerful. That tagline is still giving me chill. Like, oh, it is so powerful and truly empathetic, right? Better together has like you can see empathy right there in that statement. So talking about innovation, and as you know, our theme of this is also is we are going through COVID and all this the challenges in 2020 and going forward. How do you see the innovation and innovative approaches or programs taking place in your area of expertise, supplier diversity space? How do you see that evolving in an innovative way?
So the first thing that comes to mind, because we're on a digital platform here, is the way that technology has enabled us to pivot from being in the office literally, on a Friday, getting the quarantine notice, and then having to pivot and work from home on that Monday, and still 7-8 months later, we're in this environment. So I would say that the technology advance and the adoption of new platforms and technologies from diverse suppliers, right? We're seeing diverse suppliers that were in-person meeting planners pivot to leverage all of this online technology so we can support virtual meetings in a meaningful way. The one you participated in was run by a company called AMI, right? And that was a diverse supplier that pivoted in this environment, and they've been delivering a lot of different programs for us in this virtual environment. So I think the technology has been the most prevalent one over this 2020 period, and we're going to see more of that, right? Because the new normal, is it going to be working from home? Are we going to be on virtual conferences moving forward, and things of that nature? Who knows? But I know that the suppliers thinking about ways to make them as personal as possible, as productive as possible. And that is a brilliant thing as we move into 2021.
Yeah. And Randu, if I know you right, you are in person kind of a networker, right? So this COVID has changed this whole networking concept for supplier diversity. Share some of your thoughts how suppliers and maybe some advice. We would love to get some advice and recommendations, because it is challenging. It is challenging for Rangam, even though we have pretty good network and relationship, but just sustaining that relationship. And as you mentioned, our relationship, this is, I think we are talking after almost a year now, and we still have that connection, but it's not that easy for a lot of new suppliers. So share some thoughts that during and after COVID, what are the things suppliers should do?
So I think one of the things that suppliers should do is really, if you're an existing supplier and you have an existing relationship, don't allow the COVID-19 environment, the quarantine environment, to stifle you continuing to build that relationship. I think when we pivoted to this online in virtual environment, a lot of suppliers lost the connection with big corporations, because their mentality was, can I get a meeting in person? Can I come and we can go to lunch, or we can do X, Y, and Z face to face. And it's a struggle to try to have that connection when you're in this virtual environment. So I would say, number one, pick back up on those conversations. Don't be resilient with those conversations, right? COVID-19 didn't stop our work. It actually illuminated the importance of our work. So when you talk about sourcing and procurement, we're still buying things, right? We're still buying things to continue to support and grow our business so we can deliver, medicines to our patients. So I want to make sure that suppliers understand, don't let this COVID-19, I know it's a little more challenging, but don't let it stop you from continuing to build those relationships that you've already had. Will say it's been a challenge for newer suppliers that are trying to get, face or trying to get a meeting with you or get into certain corporations because they don't have that relationship from when we were in person. So
Yeah.
they're doing cold calls and things of that nature. And I know it is difficult, but I would say just be resilient. And the last thing I'll say about this is when we eventually do get back to a formal face-to-face environment in whatever shape or format it looks when we get there, um, don't take those relationships for granted at all. Make sure you make the most of them, right? And because business shouldn't be all about the transaction, it should be more about the long-term relationship because that is where you're top of mind. And I always say this: suppliers get rationalized out of supply base daily. Not just here, but at many corporations. But strategic partners, they last the test of time. They keep going. You can call me, and you did, and that's why we're here
Yeah.
to do things like this
Right.
because that's a relationship. That's a
Right.
strategic partnership. That's a relationship that we've built. So
Right.
make sure we don't take those for granted when we do get back in a physical environment. Make sure that we are leveraging them to build long-standing relationship. Play for the long game, not the short game, and make it less transactional.
So powerful and so true. And our experience is, it takes time to nurture this trusted relationship, and it doesn't happen overnight. And
Right.
that building relationship, constant touch bases, be resilient. Some of the great suggestions to the suppliers. Before we have few minutes left, so before we conclude, any any story, empathetic story, or anything which you would like to share, maybe personal story where you see that, I think you have shared earlier that how difficult this can be for individuals, or I don't know. Please share something which you think can be useful advice for all of us.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm just going to share a story, and it's a story of one of our suppliers, and we've shared it publicly already. But so you attended the Better Together,
Yep.
and then we did another follow up to that in September, Stronger Together, and we invited suppliers back to talk about the resiliency in 2020 and how we're going to navigate this and be stronger outside of this COVID-19 environment. But Pam Isom from Ice Safety shared her story with us. And I'll get to the end of it, but I wanted to say a little bit about her story. So when the pandemic hit, she went from a full-fledged business, delivering safety training in person or even virtually in virtual reality to our clients. But business slowed and crawled to a halt and it stalled out. And she was in a position where she had to let individuals go because she didn't have the funds to continue paying everybody and try to keep what was left of her business afloat. And I remember her putting out a call to action on Facebook. And she said, hey, any of my supply diversity corporations or anybody else that needs PPE, let me know. We were in the middle of trying to secure significant PPE for Bristol Myers Squibb. And I responded to her quickly. And that led to an order from her. That order helped her not only resupply her shelves to get PPE to critical to BMS to fill our order, but also to critical frontline workers, which was key. It also allowed her to bring her employees back that she had to furlough for a little while. And when she brought them back, she was able to buy stock for other orders that were coming in. And she was then able to secure the NBA bubble down in Orlando as one of her major clients, and she was one of the biggest suppliers of PPE during the basketball run there, right? And I bring that up because that just shows the resiliency. It shows how tight and close we are, and how those relationships matter, and how that one seed order from Bristol Myers Squibb went into the community, went back into building her business back up
Huge.
to where it is now. So that is what it's about. It's about the community. It's about the partnerships. It's about the relationships that you have. Because without the relationships that we have, that may have not come, at least from the Bristol Myers Squibb perspective, to ICE and ICE safety. So, I just want to make sure we focus on that, focus on the relationships, and no order is too small, because the impact could be exponential.
Yeah. So powerful, stronger together. And I would call that win-win for everyone, right? Win-win.
Absolutely.
And I would call this maybe creating really shared values of each and every stakeholder in the ecosystem, from community to your suppliers to BMS, and the whole and individuals who is working at this organization. So that is truly a very powerful story. Thank you so much, Rondu, for sharing this story with us. Thank you so much for your time together. We truly, truly appreciate your time and our partnership with you and Bristol Myers Squibb. So thank you for everything. And thank you for what you do for suppliers like us. And maybe how many other few 100,000? I'm pretty sure it must be thousands. So thank you for doing this amazing job and really changing the world of employment. Ultimately, the impact is on employment and the economic socio-economic conditions. So
thank you. And I want to thank Valerie before we go. Thank you so much, Valerie, because you've done a great job and appreciate you making this accessible for all. Thank you so much. And I certainly appreciate it, Nish. Anytime you need me, I'm here, my brother.
We would love to talk about some other topic as soon as we are in 2021. How about that? My invitation sometime in 2021. I would love to have you back and come up with some other conversation on other topic. But thank you again. Wishing you and your family all the best. Stay safe, healthy. Thank you everyone for joining today's show, and we will continue our conversation on empathy, innovation, and employment every Wednesday. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Stay safe,
Thanks,
everyone.
Rondu. Bye-bye.
Take care.